Hey, I'd like to welcome you to another episode of Mission Matters. My name is Adam Torres, and if you'd like to apply to be a guest in the show, just head on over to missionmatters.com and click on Be Our Guest to apply. All right, today's guest is Laura Kelly, and she's founder and owner over at Perian Wellness, and she's going to be participating as a speaker and running a panel at the State of the Women Conference that Gail and her team are hosting. And for if you haven't been watching this series for long, just to bring you up to date, the State of the Women Conference is taking place this September 17th through 19th, and you can get tickets, learn more, all that good stuff at stateofthewomen.com. So again, stateofthewomen.com. And Laura, welcome to the show.
Great. Thanks for having me. I appreciate being here.
All right, Laura, so we got a lot to talk about today. We're going to be talking about functional nutrition and maybe that versus some of the traditional methods of dealing with and addressing women's health issues such as premenopause and menopause, and we'll talk about a bunch more. But just to get us kicked off, I do want to get into the conference itself. So have you been to one of these conferences before? Is it your first year? How did you connect with Gail? Give us some of the backstory.
Yeah, great question. I haven't been to the conference, actually. I didn't even...
we got a newbie. That's awesome.
Yeah. So it's always nice to do something new. I connected with Gail, actually, through a client of mine who recommended me to her, and so that was sort of the connection.
That's awesome. So I know you're going to be hosting or moderating a panel as well and speaking. Maybe give us a little bit of insight on some of the content you guys will be covering.
Sure. So the name of the workshop is Wellness in Motion, Navigating Menopause with Confidence. And really the goal of the workshop is to have an open, conversation about how we can support women as they transition through this process, and really how to navigate not just the conversation with their doctor, but also to really give them tools that they can do in their own life. So diet, lifestyle, exercise, things that they can kind of be empowered to do for themselves and to help themselves as they transition into this new life stage.
How did you get into this work? I mean, I know you hold a number of accreditations, you have degrees, dual masters. I mean, how did you get into this?
Yeah, good question. Started actually really interested in biology, was sort of what I did my undergrad in. And that really arose out of sort of a desire to understand people and what drives the decisions we make and the behavior, we engage in. And through that, I also got very connected to the environment and how the environment impacts us. So I actually minored in environmental science. And then I went on to do a master's program in psychology, thinking that was more the direction I wanted to go. And what I ended up really figuring out was ultimately the most foundational way that we take care of ourselves is with food. It is the first thing that we learn how to do in order to keep ourselves alive and to nourish ourselves. And if you kind of follow that thread, it also really connects to how we feel. The nutrients that we eat influence our brain chemistry and our digestion and all of those kinds of things. But then also there's a social dynamic, right, to food. So really getting into that psychology aspect and family dynamics. And then if you even go out farther from that, there's all the connection to the environment and sustainability and global supply and farming. So it really hit all the different things I was interested in and really kind of tied them all together. And that's one of the things I kind of like is the body sort of mimics that too. So we really look at a lot of biochemical processes. So we kind of take a big view of the body and try to look at it from the systems, but then we also take this really tiny, minute, exacting view of it. And so it's trying to get both views to really understand somebody. And so, so that's kind of how that evolved and developed. And that's where I sit now. Right.
I want to go further into this concept of how functional nutrition maybe differs from the conventional approach, especially when it comes to addressing women's health issues. So where do you want to start with this one?
Sure. I think a good place to start is really that we all sort of understand the traditional healthcare model, right? We kind of grow up with it. We're used to it. And I think what a lot of people are starting to feel, though, is that, you go to your doctor, you share your symptoms, they run labs, and unless it's sort of an acute or an emergency or an infection, a lot of times you walk away and you're like, well, I don't really feel good, but my labs look fine. They're telling me everything's okay. And they don't really have a model for being able to sit and dig into those symptoms. other than to sort of treat them. And of course, their toolbox is medicines, right? And I think people are really wanting other options and other things that they can do that are lifestyle based.
Mm-hmm.
So the comparison there is really that our toolbox is a little bit different, what we use in functional nutrition. And we're really trying to use those things that people can choose to do in their own lives day in, day out, that can really have a massive impact on their health and how they feel.
Mm.
And so I think it really comes down to the difference between the tools we use and the perspective that we take, if that makes sense. And so for women, particularly going through perimenopause and menopause, I think it's a time of uncertainty and, feeling kind of out of control. There's a body that you used to have, and now it's doing things that you're not used to. And everything's sort of new and up in the air and changing all the time as hormones swing. And so one of the things we like to be able to do is really give women those tools that they can and sort of feel empowered and be able to make those informed choices. So one of the main things that we do, I think that's really different, is we spend a lot of time, right? So we sit with women, we have these conversations, we read the labs at a much more detailed view. We explain things. We can take the time that doctors often can't take. And so we really try to give them that education so that when they do go back to their doctor or, even in their day-to-day life, they can make really informed, precise, personalized decisions for them and know exactly why they're making those decisions. And I kind of feel like we fill a gap that the medical system really isn't able to do just because of the way it's set up.
Mm-hmm. When would somebody typically come to you or choose to use a functional nutritionist? Like, when does that normally take place?
Yeah, I would say it usually comes from feeling a little frustrated with the traditional model. I think that's the clientele we typically find, to be honest. And it is often because there are nagging symptoms or there are maybe more systemic issues and you've been to specialist after specialist after specialist and nobody's connected the dots. And we're able to do more advanced testing and do testing that looks more at the whole body versus just systems and begin to put those pieces together. So I would say the people we get the most are really once they're kind of frustrated and they've just gone from place to place and not gotten answers.
And for somebody that's never used or gone through and worked with a functional nutritionist, take me through maybe a little bit of the user journey. Obviously, it's going to be different based on what they're coming to you for and anything like that. But just because, sometimes it can be a little scary doing something new.
Yeah, of course. So we always start with a discovery call, which is free. And I feel like that's one of the most important pieces of what we do for exactly the reason you just said is, one, a lot of times we get people who have been to the healthcare practitioner after healthcare practitioner, right? So it's like, well, what is this person going to do for me? And so that discovery call is really important to kind of set that tone and be able to answer questions and, get a feel for and explain what the approach is going to look like. So that discovery call is probably the cornerstone of kind of getting people in the door and feeling comfortable about the process. And in that discovery call, one of the things I really focus on is explaining to people that the plan that we're going to make is going to be so unique that I often can't tell you how that's going to look, even in the discovery call, because I don't know everything yet. I need to look at all your past health data, right? All your labs and the trajectory on which your health story is taken. And then I can kind of come up with a plan because it's just such a detailed process that we need the time to be able to do that. So that discovery call is first, and then we have an intake appointment that's actually quite long. It's about an hour and a half. And again, we've gone through paperwork, medical records, labs, all of that by the time, we have that appointment. And then we really dig in during that appointment and spend time listening to somebody's full health journey.
Yeah.
And from that conversation, that's when we start to create a plan. And I also don't sell packages or protocols. I don't do that because we're really responding to the body that's sitting in front of us.
So it's not like a one size fits all, or it has to be this versus this versus this. It's actually like it's customized per what's going on.
Exactly. So we really don't have a process after the intake because we're deciding on what that's going to look like together.
Yeah, I can see that. And so this has been great, first off. I'm just trying to see on the other side. So if doctors normally have the tool set of medication, maybe go into a little bit of what like a version of like what's next would be after you kind of maybe find and or are kind of treating the root cause of what's going on with somebody, just so they kind of understand.
Yeah. So, and I do find a lot of people would prefer not to take medicines right away.
Yeah,
a lot
exactly.
of times they want
who's like, yeah,
first.
I want a bunch of medicine. No, I don't, not me.
Yeah. And they come with side effects sometimes, and then you get another medication.
I just don't want to. I don't care.
Yeah, exactly.
Go ahead, please.
Right. So we do see that a lot. And again, I do want to make sure I say that if there is ever a point at which we're sort of like a medication makes sense, the medication makes sense, right? Like, so we spend the time having that conversation too, how to talk to your health provider, how to bring things to their attention that maybe weren't brought to their attention. And that makes it hard for that doctor to even prescribe the right kind of medication. So having that conversation and sort of educating, particularly women, but for really everyone, on how to interact with doctors and within the medical system is actually hugely important. So, and that's where that sort of advanced testing and understanding your own body come in too, is if you're informed about what's going on, whether it's, high cholesterol or diabetes or other kinds of metabolic disorders, or even like needing hormone therapy, we can sit there and have that conversation and really help someone devise a plan of how to have the conversation with their doctor. But for example, particularly with women, hormones and balancing hormones, there's a lot that we can do without necessarily needing hormone replacement right away. And again, nothing that we do is going to take the place of hormone therapy. But one of the things we can do to be really, really helpful, because women are often a little concerned again about taking hormones, is we can really look at how we can help estrogen detoxify. So a lot of people don't realize that obviously when we take certain things or our bodies make things, we actually have to get rid of them. They don't stick around in our body forever. We're always making those products, and we actually have to begin to break those down and get rid of them. And there are a lot of things in our diet and in our foods, like for estrogen, it's cruciferous vegetables, and there's other things that we can do to basically support that estrogen detoxification, which again reduces side effects of using hormone replacement and also helps women feel better about taking estrogens and other things like that. So that's an example. And then the other one would be also for women particularly would be bone health. So there's so much we can do bone health wise before you need to take a medication for it, particularly if we catch it on the early side. And that's really optimizing, nutrients, vitamin D, calcium, K2, and then exercise is hugely important, and really putting pressure on the bones so that they, grow and remodel.
This makes a lot of sense. And I know, Laura, we're barely getting into the topic. I know you have so much more to give, but I also know that this is people need to book a discovery call. Like they need to know, like I'm sure people have individual things that are going on in their lives and world, and they wanna, maybe like you said, they come to you after maybe some other things haven't worked even. So that being said, if somebody wants to follow up and learn more and connect with you and your team, how do they do that?
Sure. So they can go to the website. So it's www.aperionwell.com, and there's a place right there that says book a free 15. And so they can write in there and we'll get back to them quite quickly and get that discovery call booked. Also on social media, on Facebook, Aperion Wellness, and then on Instagram at Aperion Well. And so they can find us there. We do sort of, once people are in the door, we're also trying to educate all the time, the newsletters and free talks and things like that to get people kind of engaged in their health.
Wonderful. And for everybody listening, just so you know, we'll definitely put some links in the show notes, so you can just click on the links and head right on over. And if you haven't done it yet, make sure you check out the website, stateofthewomen.com. Grab your tickets, and that's going to be September 17th through 19th. So, and Laura's going to be there hosting a panel and moderating and speaking. So definitely make sure you grab some, go meet Laura and grab some tickets. And speaking of the audience, if this is your first time with Mission Matters and you haven't done it yet, hit that subscribe or follow button. This is a daily show. Each and every day I'm bringing you new content, new ideas, and hopefully new inspiration to help you along the way on your journey as well. So again, hit that subscribe or follow button. And Laura, thanks again for coming on the show.
Great. Thanks for having me. This was fun.